Ryan was saying that too, so I'm not the only one. Rock has its own kind of unique energy.
Well, it's not for me. Because scam or work.
Yeah, or whatever.
Or
Just like,
I mean, it's easy for you to say when you're good.
Sorry, I just don't want you to get in trouble.
I know.
focus up. This is very serious.
Pina colada?
I don't like the taste of the alcohol. My taxes, I did.
You...
I was trying to say that you said you dropped your
Guys, Sarah, field trip to the bar.
All right.
Do that.
Fuck that.
Let's go musical.
Sarah will sing fucking bar with
My
you
car's
guys.
headed to Greedos.
We could drop her off on the way.
I can take you home.
have it. Great, just bought a guy's heroin.
Who would know this?
Not funny, didn't know what it's like to need.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's just a job.
Feeling love, and I want to feel love if I want to.
Most video game adaptations try to prove they understand the game. Fallout does something sharper. It proves it understands the joke, the horror, the sadness, and the lie underneath the entire world. Because on the surface, Fallout looks almost ridiculous. It has blue jumpsuits, retro music, giant power armor, mutated creatures, smiling corporate mascots, and people speaking with perfect manners while the world outside has turned into dust, bones, and radioactive chaos. But the deeper you follow the series, the clearer it becomes that this isn't just a story about surviving after the apocalypse. It's a story about who sold the apocalypse, who profited from it, who hid from it, and who was left outside to become the monster everyone else is afraid of. The full series begins with 3 very different lives crashing into the same wasteland. There is Lucy MacLean, raised inside Vault 33, a young woman who believes in rules, kindness, community, and the idea that civilization can be preserved if good people simply keep doing the right thing. There is Maximus, a soldier in the Brotherhood of Steel, desperate to become powerful enough that nobody can humiliate him again. And then there is Cooper Howard, the old-world movie star who becomes the Ghoul, a nearly immortal gunslinger whose body has rotted but whose memory is sharper than almost anyone alive. First, they look like 3 separate stories: a vault dweller, a knight, a bounty hunter. But Fallout's biggest trick is that all 3 of them are trapped inside the same machine. Lucy is protected by a lie. Maximus is recruited by a lie. Cooper survives because he has already seen the lie being built before the bombs ever fell. And once those 3 paths start crossing, the show stops being just a wasteland adventure. It becomes an investigation into the real crime that created this world. The opening contrast is everything. Fallout doesn't begin by throwing us straight into the wasteland. It begins with the old world before the bombs, where Cooper Howard is still a recognizable American icon. He is a cowboy actor, a family man, a public face, the kind of person people trust because television has trained them to trust him. He performs at a children's birthday party while the world around him is already cracking. The adults are nervous. Politics and war hang in the background. But the party still has balloons, cake, and smiling faces because the old world is still pretending things are normal. Then the bombs fall. That first nuclear blast is not just spectacle. It tells us the rule of the entire show. The apocalypse does not arrive as a clean break between safety and danger. It arrives while people are still trying to keep up appearances, while children are still playing, while wealthy families are still assuming they can buy their way out, while ordinary people are still looking to screens, celebrities, and institutions to tell them what is real. Cooper survives that moment, but he doesn't survive it as the man he was. 200 years later, he is the Ghoul, buried like a weapon and dug up when somebody needs violence done. His body is decayed, his voice is rough, his morals seem almost gone, and yet he carries the oldest wound in the series. He remembers the world before it became a wasteland. That means he knows something Lucy does not know. He knows the apocalypse was not simply an accident. That is why Fallout's past and present keep speaking to each other. The flashbacks are not just backstory, they are evidence. Meanwhile, Lucy's life inside Vault 33 is designed to feel like the opposite of everything Cooper has become. Her world is clean, organized, polite, and cheerful in a way that is almost unsettling. Everyone has assigned roles. Everyone believes in the Vault mission. Everyone speaks as if optimism is a civic duty. Lucy herself is capable, intelligent, and brave, but she has been raised inside a controlled story. She believes the vaults were built to save humanity. She believes the surface is dangerous, but temporary. She believes if the right people survive underground long enough, then one day civilization can return. And that belief makes her both strong and vulnerable. Because Lucy is not naive because she is stupid. She is naive because her entire society has been engineered to make certain questions unthinkable. Who built the vaults? Who decided who got inside? What exactly were they preserving? And if they were so committed to saving humanity, why does the system feel so obsessed with obedience, breeding, management, and secrecy? The show reveals that Lucy's vault life is not just a shelter. It is a performance. Even her wedding, which should be intimate and hopeful, becomes part of a larger mechanism. The arranged exchange with Vault 32 looks like a familiar vault tradition, something bureaucratic but harmless. The people of Vault 33 treat it like a normal step in keeping the future alive. Lucy approaches it with nervous excitement, believing she is doing her part for the community. Then the illusion is ripped open. The raiders who enter Vault 33 are not the polite neighbors everyone expected. They attack, slaughter, and expose just how fragile this underground paradise really is. Lucy's husband is not who she thinks he is. Her home is violated. Her father, Hank MacLean, is taken. And suddenly, the vault's clean walls do not feel safe anymore. They feel like they have been hiding her from the truth. This is the first major transformation in Lucy's arc. She leaves the vault not because she rejects its values, but because she believes in them so deeply. She wants to rescue her father. She wants to help. She wants to prove that goodness can work even in a ruined world. And that is exactly what makes her journey so painful. The wasteland does not just threaten her life. It tests whether her morality can survive contact with reality. Her first steps outside are almost mythic. The vault door opens, and the world she has only imagined becomes a harsh, sun-bleached nightmare. The surface is huge, dirty, violent, and confusing. Nothing works according to the social rules she knows. Helping people can get her betrayed. Trusting strangers can get her robbed. Even basic survival requires compromises she has never had to consider. But Fallout is careful not to make Lucy's kindness look useless. That would be too easy. The smarter idea is that her kindness is powerful but incomplete. She has courage. She has empathy. She has a moral center. What she lacks is context. She does not understand how much history is buried under every wasteland deal, every faction, every settlement, every corpse. That is where Maximus becomes such an important mirror. Maximus does not come from comfort. He comes from trauma. As a child, he survived destruction and was saved, or at least claimed, by the Brotherhood of Steel. To him, the Brotherhood is not just a military order. It is the thing that appeared when he was powerless. It is armor, structure, purpose, and revenge disguised as duty. He wants to become a knight not only because knights are respected, but because power armor represents the opposite of helplessness. The Brotherhood itself is one of Fallout's most fascinating institutions because it looks noble from a distance. It has rituals, ranks, technology, discipline, and a mission that sounds important. It wants to preserve advanced technology and keep dangerous tools away from the wrong hands. But inside the series, that mission often feels less like wisdom and more like control. The Brotherhood teaches loyalty, but also fear. It gives Maximus a path, but it also teaches him that worth has to be earned through suffering and obedience. So when Maximus gets near power, his choices become messy fast. He is not a clean hero. He lies, he panics, he makes selfish decisions. He wants to be brave, but he also wants to be seen. He wants to protect people, but he wants the armor too. And that makes him feel very human inside a world full of extreme characters. Here's the thing. Lucy, Maximus, and Cooper are each chasing a different version of salvation. Lucy believes salvation is moral. If she can rescue her father and hold on to decency, then the world can still make sense. Maximus believes salvation is status. If he can become powerful enough, respected enough, armored enough, then nobody can treat him like nothing. Cooper believes salvation might not exist anymore. But he still keeps moving because somewhere inside the Ghoul, underneath the violence and sarcasm and rot, there is a man who lost a family, lost a country, and lost the truth in real time. That is why the show's structure works so well. It does not simply adapt a game plot, it adapts the feeling of Fallout. The way comedy sits right next to horror, the way cheerful branding covers up cruelty, the way every faction claims to be rebuilding civilization while repeating the same selfish patterns that destroyed it. The wasteland is not just a ruined America. It is America with the mask removed, and the series understands that better than almost anyone expected. One of the strongest early examples is how Fallout uses tone. A scene can begin with an old-fashioned song, a bright smile, or a piece of retro-futuristic design that feels almost charming. Then it can turn violent, grotesque, or heartbreaking without warning. That contrast is not random. It is the point. Fallout's world was built by people who made disaster look marketable. Vault-Tec did not sell fear honestly. It sold comfort, it sold family, it sold tomorrow. That corporate smile becomes one of the most disturbing symbols in the series. Because once Lucy enters the surface world, she is not just discovering that the wasteland is dangerous. She is discovering that the Vault version of history may have been written by the same kind of people who caused the disaster. The clean underground life she wants to defend may not be the innocent refuge she thought it was. And if the vaults were never purely about saving people, then Lucy's entire identity has been built on a foundation that can collapse. At the same time, Cooper's flashbacks show how that foundation was poured. Before he became the Ghoul, Cooper Howard was connected to Vault-Tec through his wife, Barb. The more we see of his old life, the more uncomfortable it becomes. Cooper is not just some random celebrity from before the war. He becomes a witness to the machinery of propaganda. He lends his image to a world that is selling safety while quietly preparing for catastrophe. And as he begins to suspect that the people closest to him know more than they admit, his past becomes the key to the present mystery. That is the first big hidden engine of Fallout. The show is not asking only, can Lucy survive the wasteland? It is asking, what if the wasteland is the final product of decisions made in boardrooms, not battlefields? Once you understand that, the series changes shape. The Raider attack on Vault 33 is no longer just the event that sends Lucy outside. It is the first crack in a controlled experiment. Maximus joining the hunt is no longer just a soldier's adventure. It is a test of whether a wounded person can use power without being consumed by it. Cooper hunting across the wasteland is no longer just a cool Western storyline. It is the revenge trail of a man who watched the old world lie itself into extinction. And above all of them is the question of Hank MacLean. At first, Hank seems like the ideal Vault father. Calm, caring, responsible, a leader who represents everything Lucy believes is good about Vault 33. His kidnapping gives Lucy a clean mission. Save Dad, restore order, come home. But Fallout is already warning us that clean missions do not survive long in this world. The more Lucy learns, the more Hank's image becomes unstable. The father she loves may not be the man she thinks he is. The Vault she calls home may not be the moral center of the story. And the people who raised her may have been standing much closer to the source of the apocalypse than she could ever imagine. That is the hook that carries the whole series forward. Fallout begins with a Vault dweller stepping into the wasteland. But the real journey is not from underground to above ground. It is from innocence to knowledge, from propaganda to history, from believing the world ended because humanity failed, to realizing some people may have helped it fail on purpose. And once Lucy starts walking through that truth, there is no way back into the Vault unchanged. The first thing the wasteland teaches Lucy is that good intentions do not protect you from bad information. Inside Vault 33, morality has structure. There are rules, elections, assignments, medical checks, family obligations, and social rituals that make life feel stable. If something goes wrong, the community talks about it, files it, manages it, and moves forward. The Vault is not perfect, but it is understandable. Lucy knows where she fits. She knows how to be useful. Outside, usefulness is not measured the same way. On the surface, food, medicine, water, bullets, and information all have value. Trust is expensive. Mercy can be dangerous. A person can smile at you and still be calculating how much your organs might be worth. That sounds grim, But Fallout keeps finding comedy inside it because Lucy's vault manners are almost surreal in this setting. She says the right things. She tries to be polite. She expects conversations to have basic fairness, and the wasteland keeps answering her with teeth, knives, traps, and deals made by people who stopped believing in fairness generations ago. This could have turned Lucy into a joke. Instead, it makes her the emotional center of the story, because she does not simply walk outside and instantly become hardened. The show lets her shock linger. She is frightened, disgusted, confused, and sometimes completely outmatched. But she also adapts, not all at once, not in a fake action hero transformation. She adapts one ugly lesson at a time. The first major lesson is that survival and goodness are not always the same thing. In the vault, Lucy has been taught that being good is part of keeping everyone alive. On the surface, she meets people who have survived by abandoning exactly the values she wants to preserve. She sees that some people are cruel because cruelty works. Others are cruel because the wasteland has punished every softer instinct out of them. And some are cruel because they are simply enjoying the lack of consequences. The most disturbing part is that the wasteland does not feel lawless because nobody believes in order. It feels lawless because everyone has their own order. The Brotherhood has its order. Raiders have theirs. Settlements have theirs. Doctors, bounty hunters, traders, cult-like communities, and surviving vault systems all have rules. But none of these systems are universal. Each one protects somebody and sacrifices somebody else. Lucy's mistake is assuming civilization is one thing. Fallout keeps showing her that civilization is a word people use when their preferred system wins. That becomes clearer when her path keeps brushing against the Ghoul. The Ghoul is introduced like a nightmare version of the Western hero Cooper Howard used to play. He is fast, brutal, funny in a dry and terrible way, and almost impossible to intimidate. He knows the wasteland's codes because he has lived through them longer than almost anyone. He understands which threats are real, which promises are empty, and which kinds of people are pretending to be civilized while preparing to betray you. When Lucy and the Ghoul collide, the contrast is perfect. She represents a future that still wants to believe in human decency. He represents a past that has watched decency get packaged, sold, betrayed, and buried. She sees him as monstrous, and often he is, but he sees her as something almost more dangerous than a fool. Someone who believes the lie so sincerely that she can still be used by it. That is why his cruelty toward Lucy has layers. On the surface, he is a bounty hunter using her as leverage, treating her like a resource in a world where bodies and information are currency. But beneath that, there is a darker kind of education. He is forcing her to confront what the wasteland does to people. He does not give her gentle warnings. He shows her the result. And yet, Fallout never lets us forget that the Ghoul is not free either. He may understand the wasteland better than Lucy, but understanding is not healing. He is still trapped by his need for answers. He still needs vials to keep himself from becoming feral. He still carries the grief of his daughter, his wife, and the old world he helped advertise without fully understanding what was happening behind the curtain. His survival has become its own prison. Every violent job keeps him alive, but it also keeps him moving through the same dead country, chasing a truth that may not give him peace even if he finds it. That is the tragedy of Cooper Howard. He lived long enough to learn the truth, but too late to save anyone from it. Maximus, meanwhile, is learning a different lesson. He believes power will make him whole, but the closer he gets to power, the more unstable his identity becomes. His relationship with the Brotherhood is built on shame. He is surrounded by people who talk about honor and mission, but the daily reality is brutal hierarchy. Aspirants are mocked, tested, and used. Knights are idolized. The armor becomes more than equipment. It becomes a symbol of worth. To be inside it means you matter. To be outside it means you serve someone who does. When Maximus is assigned as a squire, he gets closer to the thing he has always wanted. But closeness is not the same as belonging. The Brotherhood's heroic image begins to crack almost immediately. The knight he serves is not the perfect warrior Maximus imagined. The mission is not pure. Fear and ego are everywhere. And when chaos gives Maximus a chance to take the armor for himself, his choice exposes the central conflict inside him. He wants to be noble. He also wants to be powerful. Those two desires are not automatically the same. This is where the show gets smarter about Maximus than a simpler version would have been. It does not make him purely cowardly, and it does not make him purely heroic. He is both brave and insecure, both sympathetic and frustrating. He lies because he is afraid of losing the first real chance he has ever had to be seen as important. But he also uses that chance to help, to protect, and to reach for a version of himself he does not fully know how to become. When Maximus meets Lucy, their dynamic works because they are both performing versions of themselves. Lucy is performing the capable vault rescuer who can bring her father home and stay morally clean. Maximus is performing the knight, the brave man in the armor, the person he wishes he already was. Neither performance is completely false. That is what makes it interesting. Lucy really is brave. Maximus really can be protective. But both of them are hiding from what they do not understand about themselves. Lucy does not understand how deeply her world has lied to her. Maximus does not understand that wearing power is not the same as earning trust. Together, they create one of the show's most human threads. In a wasteland full of factions and ancient conspiracies, their connection is awkward, funny, suspicious, and sincere. They are young people trying to decide what kind of adults they are becoming in a world that gives them almost no safe models. Lucy has ideals without experience. Maximus has experience without a stable moral language. Each one has something the other needs, but neither knows how to ask for it cleanly. That is why the scene work between them matters beyond romance or partnership. Their bond tests the show's biggest question. Can people raised inside broken systems still choose something better? The answer is not simple. Fallout does not believe innocence alone is enough. It also does not believe cynicism is wisdom. Lucy needs to become less innocent, but not less humane. Maximus needs to become less desperate for status, but not less hungry for dignity. Cooper needs to face the truth, but not confuse revenge with justice. All three arcs are moving toward the same buried secret. The severed head they are all chasing seems at first like a classic wasteland object. Strange, grotesque, valuable, and dangerous. Different factions want it. People die over it. It turns the journey into a chase, where nobody fully understands the stakes at the same time. But the head matters because of what it contains. Information connected to cold fusion, a technology that could change the power balance of the wasteland. And that word, power, is the center of everything. Cold fusion is not just a science fiction device in the plot. It represents the possibility of energy, infrastructure, and a different future. In a world where scarcity controls behavior, a major power source could rebuild cities, empower factions, or become the next tool of domination. Whoever controls it does not just control technology, they control hope. That is why Moldaver becomes one of the most important figures in the first season. At first, Moldaver appears through violence. She is tied to the raid on Vault 33, to Hank's kidnapping, and to Lucy's trauma. From Lucy's point of view, Moldaver is the villain who shattered her home. But Fallout slowly complicates that view. Moldaver is not random chaos. She is connected to a larger history, to the new California Republic, to the fight for a restored civilization, and to a personal past that reaches back before Lucy understood anything about the surface. The show uses Lucy's limited perspective against us. Because we begin where she begins, we are encouraged to accept her emotional map. Vault equals home, father equals good, raider equals evil, surface equals danger. But the longer the story runs, the more those labels become unreliable. The people who look civilized may have committed the worst crimes. The people who use violence may be fighting crimes that polite systems buried. The wasteland may be ugly, but it may also be where the truth survived because the vaults were too controlled to allow it. This is one of Fallout's strongest narrative moves. It keeps changing what earlier scenes meant. The attack on Vault 33 remains horrifying. Innocent people died. Lucy's trauma is real. But later context forces the audience to separate personal pain from historical truth. Moldaver can be responsible for violence and still be closer to the truth than Hank. Hank can be loving toward Lucy and still be involved in something monstrous. The vault can contain good people and still be part of a corrupt design. That is more unsettling than a simple twist because it feels closer to how systems actually work. Evil does not always announce itself with a villain's face. Sometimes it arrives as management, as safety, as a family plan, as a company promising tomorrow. And the show's flashbacks keep proving that point. Before the war, Vault-Tec presents itself as the guardian of humanity's future. It sells underground survival as a rational response to nuclear fear. But the deeper Cooper gets into that world, the clearer it becomes that the company is not merely preparing for disaster. It is gaming out disaster. It is imagining the end of the world as a market opportunity, a controlled environment, a grand experiment in human management. The horror is not just that corporations are greedy. That would be too basic. The horror is that they are so confident in their right to design the future that they start treating human beings as variables. That is what links the vaults to the wasteland. The wasteland looks uncontrolled, but it is partly the result of control taken to its most insane conclusion. Vault-Tec and the old world powers wanted to manage survival so completely that they helped create a world where survival became the only thing left. Cooper's growing suspicion of Barb makes this personal. Barb is not just a corporate employee in the background. She is his wife, the mother of his child, the person whose choices sit closest to his heart. When he realizes she may know more about Vault-Tec's true intentions, his old life becomes impossible to trust. The home he thought he had, the career he built, the patriotic image he performed, all of it starts to look like scenery in someone else's plan, and that gives the Ghoul's present-day bitterness real weight. He is not simply angry because the world ended. He is angry because the ending had authors. By the time Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul's paths tightened around the same mystery, Fallout has turned a wasteland adventure into a moral trap. Every character wants something understandable. Lucy wants her father. Maximus wants respect. Cooper wants answers. Moldaver wants power restored to a broken world. The Brotherhood wants control of dangerous technology. Vault-Tec's old shadow wants its plan to continue. But the question is not who wants power. The question is who can be trusted with it after the world has already ended once. And Fallout's answer, at least at this stage, is deeply uncomfortable. Almost nobody. The middle of Fallout works because every storyline is secretly about access. Lucy wants access to her father. Maximus wants access to the status and protection of the Brotherhood. The Ghoul wants access to the truth about what happened to his family. Moldaver wants access to cold fusion. The Brotherhood wants access to whatever technology could let it dominate the wasteland. And Vault-Tec's old design is built around the most disturbing access of all, deciding who gets to survive history and who gets experimented on inside it. That is why the severed head storyline is so strange but also so perfect for Fallout. In another series, carrying a dead scientist's head across the wasteland might feel like shock for shock's sake. Here, it feels completely natural. Fallout's world has always mixed body horror with absurd bureaucracy. A human head can be cargo, a corpse can be a key, a brutal chase can be built around a piece of intellectual property, because the wasteland did not destroy ownership, ambition, or corporate thinking. It just made them uglier. The scientist connected to that head, Siggi Wilzig, is more important than he first appears. He is not simply a man running from danger. He is carrying technology that could alter the future, and he understands that almost everyone who wants it will use it as leverage. His death pushes Lucy deeper into the central conflict because she becomes responsible for an object whose meaning she barely understands. To her, it is another horrible wasteland task on the way to saving Hank. To everyone else, it is a potential turning point in the balance of power. That difference matters. Lucy keeps thinking in personal terms. My father, my home, my promise, my mission. The wasteland keeps thinking in systemic terms: energy, territory, factions, weapons, secrets, control. And the tragedy is that both are real. Lucy's love for Hank is real. Her grief is real. Her fear is real. But she is walking through a conflict much older than her own life, and the people around her know that better than she does. Moldaver especially understands the long game. When we first meet Moldaver, the show encourages us to distrust her. She enters Lucy's life through violence. She is tied to raiders. She takes Hank. She looks like the nightmare Lucy was warned about. But the later reveal changes her position in the story. Moldaver is connected to the New California Republic, the fallen attempt at a larger democratic civilization on the surface. She is also connected to Rose, Lucy's mother, and to the truth of Shady Sands. That name becomes one of the most important emotional weapons in the series. Shady Sands represents proof that the surface was not only chaos, it was proof that life outside the vaults could grow into something organized, hopeful, and real. For Lucy, that is devastating because her entire upbringing depends on the idea that the surface is not ready. The vaults have to wait. The vaults have to manage the future. The vaults have to remain sealed because civilization outside is too broken. But Shady Sands says something else. Shady Sands says the world did begin rebuilding. People did gather. They did create homes, politics, families, memory, and a future. The surface did not need Vault-Tec's chosen managers as much as Vault-Tec wanted people to believe. And if that is true, then the Vault mission Lucy was raised to honor begins to look less like preservation and more like competition. That is where Hank's story becomes monstrous. Hank is not frightening because he is cold to Lucy. He is frightening because he is warm to her. He can be gentle, fatherly, reassuring, and still connected to terrible choices. He is the kind of antagonist Fallout understands best, not a cartoon villain, but a man who can commit atrocity while believing he is protecting a plan, a family, a future, or an institution. When the truth about Hank begins to surface, it reorders the whole season. He was not just an innocent overseer dragged away by a violent outsider. He is part of Vault-Tec's preserved leadership structure, one of the pre-war people moved through time to continue a project after the world had burned. The Vault system is not simply a shelter for descendants. It is a machine that allowed certain old-world loyalists to wait out history and re-enter it when conditions suited them. That idea is terrifying because it means the past did not die. The apocalypse killed billions, erased cities, mutated bodies, shattered governments, and turned America into ruins. But the people who helped design the conditions of that world created ways to survive it. They did not just leave behind companies and slogans. They left behind personnel. They left behind management. They left behind a plan. In Fallout, the future is haunted not by ghosts, but by executives. That is the hidden punchline underneath all the retro design. The old world is everywhere. Its music plays. Its advertisements smile. Its architecture remains. Its weapons still kill. Its vaults still operate. Its corporate culture still shapes people who were born long after the bombs. The wasteland looks like a break from the past, but it is actually the past refusing to release its grip. Lucy's personal betrayal is the emotional version of that. She thought she was leaving home to save her father from the wasteland. Instead, she slowly learns that her father brought the logic of the old world into the vault. She thought the surface was the corruption. Instead, the corruption was waiting inside the institution that taught her what goodness looked like. This does not make Lucy's love fake. That is important. She does love Hank. Hank raised her. He comforted her. He shaped her sense of safety. Fallout would be weaker if it treated that bond as meaningless once the reveal comes. The pain comes from the opposite. The bond matters, which is why the truth cuts so deeply. A simple villain can be rejected. A beloved father has to be mourned before he can be opposed. At the same time, Maximus's storyline keeps tightening around his own false image. In the armor, he becomes what he always wanted people to see. He looks powerful. He looks heroic. He can intimidate people, survive attacks, and move through the wasteland with a kind of authority he never had as an aspirant. But the armor also exposes him. Every moment he spends pretending to be a knight creates another lie he has to maintain. The show uses that lie for comedy, but also for character pressure. Maximus is not naturally good at deception because he is not a master manipulator. He is an insecure young man improvising his way through a fantasy that became real too quickly. That makes his scenes unpredictable. He can be sweet one moment, selfish the next, then brave after that. He is not consistent because he has never been allowed to build a stable self. The Brotherhood gave him a role before he knew who he was outside of wanting it. His bond with Lucy threatens that role because she responds to the person underneath the armor. She does not fully understand him, and he certainly does not tell her the whole truth at first, but their connection gives him something the Brotherhood does not: the possibility of being valued without the costume. That possibility scares him, because if Maximus is not the knight, then who is he? The frightened survivor from the crater? The squire who let another man die? The liar? The protector? The boy who wanted power because power looked like safety? Fallout does not answer quickly. It lets him stay uncomfortable. The ghoul's discomfort is older and more violent. He has already lost his clean identity. Cooper Howard is buried under 2 centuries of survival, but the flashbacks keep reminding us that the ghoul is not simply what the wasteland made. He is also what betrayal made. Every glimpse of Cooper's old life adds another layer of irony to his present body. The cowboy actor who once sold heroic myths becomes an actual gunslinger in a world where heroism has mostly curdled into transaction. And yet, the ghoul may be the character least fooled by appearances. He knows the vault suit does not make Lucy pure. He knows the Brotherhood's armor does not make Maximus noble. He knows a smiling executive can be more dangerous than a raider. He knows the difference between branding and truth because he used to be branding. That is one of the best pieces of writing in the show. Cooper Howard's career matters thematically. He was an actor. His job was to become an image people believed. He understands performance from the inside. So when he moves through the wasteland, he is not only reading threats, he is reading roles. Who is pretending? Who is selling? Who is hiding fear behind language? Who is using costume as authority? In that sense, he is the perfect person to expose Fallout's world. The old world performed innocence while planning disaster. The vaults perform community while hiding control. The Brotherhood performs honor while craving dominance. Maximus performs knighthood. Lucy performs certainty. And the ghoul performs not caring, even though the trail he follows proves he still cares about one thing more than survival: what happened to his family. That is why the finale's direction feels inevitable long before it arrives. All roads lead to the observatory, because the observatory is where different definitions of the future collide. Moldaver wants to activate cold fusion and bring power back to a ruined city. Hank wants to prevent control from slipping away from Vault-Tec's long design. The Brotherhood wants the technology for itself. Lucy wants the truth and her father. Maximus wants to be someone worthy in Lucy's eyes and in his own. The ghoul wants answers that may sit behind Hank and the pre-war conspiracy. The Griffith Observatory setting is not just visually memorable. It is symbolic. An observatory is built for looking outward, for studying distant lights, for understanding humanity's place in a larger universe. But in Fallout, it becomes the place where buried human lies finally come into view. The characters are not looking at stars. They are looking at the consequences of a world where powerful people decided they could control tomorrow by destroying today. Before the final collision, Lucy's moral universe has already begun to fracture. She has seen enough to know the wasteland is not the simple enemy. She has also seen enough to know the vault was not the simple answer, but she has not yet had to face the full contradiction in one person. That person is Hank. When Moldaver reveals what Hank really did, especially his role in the destruction of Shady Sands, the emotional structure of the season flips. The man Lucy crossed hell to rescue becomes the reason another home was erased. The father who represented safety becomes the destroyer of someone else's safety. The overseer who taught order becomes proof that order can commit mass violence when it feels threatened by a rival future. And Rose, Lucy's mother, becomes the missing bridge between those worlds. Rose discovered that the surface was not dead in the way Vault 33's people believed. She found Shady Sands. She saw that life outside had returned. That knowledge was dangerous because it challenged the entire Vault project. If the surface could rebuild without Vault-Tec's approved leadership, then the Vaults were not humanity's only hope. They were a competing claim over humanity's future. Hank's response to that challenge reveals who he really serves. Not simply his family, not simply his vault. He serves the plan. That is why Lucy's heartbreak is bigger than discovering her father lied. She discovers that he chose an ideology over the truth, and that ideology cost countless lives. He did not just hide the surface from his children. He helped erase a surface society that proved his worldview wrong. This is where Fallout becomes more than a mystery reveal. It becomes an argument about control. The old world destroyed itself because leaders, corporations, and factions believed survival had to be managed from above. They believed ordinary people could be manipulated, sorted, frozen, tested, sacrificed, and redeployed. They believed the future belonged to whoever had the bunker, the code, the reactor, the army, or the boardroom. But the existence of Shady Sands says the opposite. It says the future can emerge from below. Messy, imperfect, vulnerable, but alive. And that is exactly why it had to be destroyed by someone like Hank. Because to a control system, independent hope is a threat. The reveal about Shady Sands is the moment Fallout turns Lucy's story inside out. Until then, she has been moving through the wasteland with a painful but simple emotional mission. Rescue her father, survive the surface, and return home with enough faith still intact to believe the vault can heal. But Shady Sands destroys that simplicity. It proves the surface was not just a graveyard waiting for vault people to reclaim it. It was already becoming a world again. Not a perfect world, not a clean world, but a living one. And that matters because Lucy was raised to think of the vault as humanity's patient heart, beating safely underground until the outside world was ready. The truth is much darker. The vault was not just waiting for the future. It was competing with other futures. And when one of those futures became too real, too independent, and too threatening to the old plan, Hank helped wipe it away. That is why Lucy cannot simply process this as one more wasteland horror. This is not a stranger betraying her. This is her father. This is the person whose rescue justified every step she took outside, the person whose goodness she used as proof that her world still made sense. The show understands that a betrayal like this does not land only as information. It lands physically. It changes how Lucy stands in the room. It changes what her memories mean. Every comforting image of Hank inside the vault now has another shadow behind it. Every lesson he taught about duty, hope, and rebuilding has to be re-examined. Was he teaching her to be good or teaching her to be useful to a story he needed her to believe? That is a brutal question for any child to ask about a parent. And Fallout does not give Lucy an easy escape from it, because Hank is not written as a man who suddenly drops the mask and becomes purely evil. He still sounds like her father. He still speaks with the calm authority she has trusted all her life. He still frames his choices as necessary. That makes him more dangerous, not less. A villain who knows he is cruel can be resisted directly. A father who insists his cruelty was protection forces Lucy to fight not only him, but the part of herself that still wants to believe him. This is where Moldaver's role becomes more tragic, too. Moldaver has been carrying history that Lucy never received. She knows Rose's story. She knows what Shady Sands represented. She knows what Hank took from the surface. Her violence at the beginning of the season does not become harmless just because she has reasons, but it becomes understandable inside the larger war over memory. Moldaver is not simply trying to hurt Hank. She is trying to expose the version of history he buried, and the cold fusion device becomes the perfect symbol for that exposure. Power, in Fallout, is never only power. It is the ability to shape what people can remember, where they can live, who they can trust, and what future they can imagine. Cold fusion could light up the ruins. It could restore energy to communities that have spent generations fighting over scraps. But the moment a technology like that exists, every faction sees it through its own hunger. Moldaver sees it as restoration. The Brotherhood sees it as a prize. Vault-Tec survivors see it as a threat to control. And Lucy sees it first through confusion, then horror, then moral awakening. That final convergence at the observatory makes all three main characters face the false stories that have been holding them together. For Lucy, the false story is that her father and her vault are the moral center. For Maximus, the false story is that becoming a knight will automatically make him worthy. For the Ghoul, the false story is that he has nothing left but survival. Each of them is pushed to act when their story breaks. Maximus arrives with the Brotherhood's machinery of war behind him, and his position is deeply complicated. He is still tangled in lies, but he is also no longer the same scared aspirant who first wanted armor as an answer to humiliation. His connection with Lucy has changed him, not because love magically fixes him, but because she has forced him to see himself outside the Brotherhood's ranking system. He wants to be brave for a reason that is not just promotion. He wants to protect someone, and he wants to be seen honestly, even if he has not yet fully earned that honesty. That makes his choices in the finale tense, because the Brotherhood is not just background noise. It is an institution with momentum. Once it moves toward the observatory, individual morality becomes small compared to organizational hunger. Soldiers can tell themselves they are serving a higher mission while still becoming part of a power grab. Maximus is caught inside that contradiction. The armor that once looked like freedom now risks turning him into a tool. Lucy, on the other hand, is stripped of every comfortable explanation. She cannot hide inside the Vault's version of history anymore. She cannot pretend Moldaver is only a monster. She cannot pretend Hank is only a victim. She cannot pretend the surface is only chaos. The story forces her into adulthood by making her choose between loyalty to a person and loyalty to the truth. That is the real coming-of-age arc, not learning to shoot, not learning wasteland rules, not losing innocence in a generic way. Lucy grows up when she realizes that love without truth can become obedience, and once she sees Hank clearly, the Vault itself becomes impossible to see the old way. Vault 33 is filled with people Lucy cares about. Her brother Norm is there. Her community is there. Innocent people who did not ask to be part of Vault-Tec's buried plan are there, but the institution around them is rotten with design. Its clean hallways are part of the horror because they make control feel humane. Norm's storyline is crucial because he investigates that horror from inside. While Lucy discovers the surface, Norm discovers the Vault system. And in many ways, his journey is just as important. He is not crossing deserts or fighting ghouls, but he is walking into a different kind of wasteland, the administrative ruins of Vault-Tec's experiment. He begins to notice inconsistencies. Vault 32's destruction does not fit the official comfort everyone tries to restore. The connection between Vault 31, Vault 32, and Vault 33 points toward a deeper structure, and the more he pulls at it, the more the Vault stops feeling like home and starts feeling like a controlled habitat. That is a brilliant parallel. Lucy goes outside and learns the surface has more civilization than she was told. Norm stays inside and learns the vault has more savagery than anyone admits. Together, they reveal the same truth from opposite directions. The boundary between safe underground and dangerous surface was always a lie. Vault 31 becomes the key. It shows that the Vault Network is not just a community of survivors making the best of a ruined world. It has been preserving selected people, especially Vault-Tec connected managers, who can influence future generations. This turns the vaults into something colder than bunkers. They are time capsules for power, not just preserving humanity, but preserving hierarchy. The people of Vault 33 may think they are choosing leaders, building families, and continuing tradition. But those traditions have been shaped by a hidden hand. The system is designed so that the old world can keep reproducing itself even after the old world supposedly died. That is one of Fallout's most disturbing ideas. The apocalypse did not end the ruling class. It gave them a reset button. Norm's discovery also makes the show's comedy sharper. The Vault's politeness becomes horrifying because it is surrounded by absurd corporate procedure. People discuss trauma with cheerful phrasing. They process catastrophe through committees and slogans. They try to normalize what should never be normal. This is Fallout's satire at its best, the language of office culture surviving the end of the world. But the satire works because it is tied to stakes. Norm is not just uncovering a funny secret. He is realizing his entire life has been shaped by people who treat human communities as manageable assets. And when he gets closer to the truth, the vault system responds not like a home, but like a trap. That is the deeper meaning of the vaults across the show. They are not scary because they are dark. They are scary because they are bright. They have clean rooms, shared meals, rules, and smiling neighbors. They make oppression feel like comfort. They make secrecy feel like protection. They make obedience feel like civic virtue. The surface may threaten your body. The vault threatens your ability to know what reality is. By the end of the first season's main arc, Lucy has lost the luxury of simple categories. She has seen that the wasteland contains monsters, but also victims of buried crimes. She has seen that vaults contain good people, but also systems designed by monsters in suits. She has seen that her father loves her, but that love did not stop him from destroying others. And that is why her decision to continue beyond the finale feels earned. Lucy cannot just go home. Home has changed, or more precisely, Lucy has learned what home always was. She now understands that the truth is not waiting in one place. It is scattered across the wasteland, across pre-war secrets, across the Ghoul's memory, across Hank's escape, and across whatever remains of Vault-Tec's larger plan. That brings her into uneasy alignment with the Ghoul. The Ghoul has been chasing answers for 200 years. Lucy has been chasing them for only a few days, but the finale makes their goals overlap. Hank knows things. Hank is connected to the old world machinery Cooper has spent centuries trying to understand. And when Hank flees, the chase no longer belongs only to Lucy's family drama. It becomes part of Cooper's search for his wife, his daughter, and the people who helped end the world. That is what makes the final image so strong. Lucy and the Ghoul are not friends in a simple sense. They are not clean partners. He has hurt her. She has every reason to distrust him. But by the end, they are both walking toward the same buried source of truth. She brings moral shock. He brings historical rage. She is what the vault produced without meaning to. A good person who can no longer be contained by its lies. He is what the old world produced without meaning to. A witness who refuses to die before he finds the people responsible. Together, they become Fallout's most important question moving into the next stage. What happens when innocence and experience stop fighting each other and start hunting the same lie? By the end of the first season's main story, Fallout has done something very deliberate. It has made every major form of safety look suspicious. The Vault is not pure safety. It is controlled safety. The Brotherhood is not pure safety. It is militarized safety. Cold fusion is not pure safety. It is technological safety, and technology in this world always attracts people who want to own it. Even the Ghoul's survival is not true safety. It is endurance without peace. That is why the series feels bigger than its plot. The chase matters, the action matters, the mysteries matter. But underneath all of it, Fallout is asking what kind of world people build when they are terrified, and almost every answer is compromised. Vault-Tec responds to fear by selling control. The Brotherhood responds to fear by collecting weapons. The wasteland responds to fear by turning trust into a luxury. Lucy responds to fear by trying to hold on to decency. Maximus responds to fear by reaching for armor. Cooper responds to fear by becoming someone nobody can wound easily because the part of him that could be wounded was already destroyed. That emotional logic is why the show's violence never feels completely separate from its satire. The wasteland is funny, but it is funny in the way a broken system can be funny when everyone has accepted madness as normal. A man can be harvested for parts. A corporate mascot can smile over a nightmare. A military order can turn ritual into abuse and call it discipline. A vault can hold elections while hiding the fact that the real structure was decided generations earlier. This is the Fallout tone at its best. Absurdity as evidence. The world is ridiculous because the systems that created it were ridiculous, except they had enough money, weapons, and authority to make their ridiculous ideas real. That is why Vault-Tec becomes more frightening the more we understand it. It is not scary only because it built vaults. It is scary because it understood branding. It knew how to make people feel chosen. It knew how to turn fear into loyalty. It knew how to sell the apocalypse as a product before the apocalypse even arrived. The vaults, then, are not only places, they are arguments. They argue that survival should be managed by experts. They argue that ordinary people should be guided without knowing the full truth. They argue that the future belongs to whoever planned for disaster first. And they argue, most dangerously, that if the surface rebuilds without them, that rebuilding can be treated as a mistake. That is what makes Hank's connection to Shady Sands so devastating. He does not destroy it because it is nothing. He destroys it because it is something. It is proof that the Vault ideology is not inevitable. It is proof that human beings outside the experiment can organize, love, build, and remember. The very existence of Shady Sands exposes the Vault project as morally fraudulent. For Lucy, this revelation is not just political, it is intimate. She has to look at her father and understand that he did not simply lie to her about details. He lied about the shape of the world. He allowed her to believe the surface was a failed space waiting for people like them to restore it, when in reality, the surface had already produced people and places worthy of protection. He made her innocent by controlling what she could know. That kind of innocence is not a gift, it is a cage. And once Lucy sees that, her Vault identity changes forever. She does not become the Ghoul. She does not throw away empathy. She does not suddenly decide the wasteland's cruelty is wisdom. That would betray what makes her powerful as a character. Instead, she becomes something rarer in this world, a decent person who has lost the excuse of ignorance. That is a much stronger position than innocence. Innocence can be manipulated. Decency with knowledge can resist. This is where Lucy's arc starts to separate her from the world that made her. Vault 33 taught her politeness, cooperation, optimism, and duty. Those qualities are not worthless. In fact, they are part of why she survives emotionally. But the Vault also taught her selective history, obedience to structure, and trust in leaders who had not earned it. Lucy's future depends on her ability to keep the first part and reject the second. That is not easy, because Fallout does not present identity as something you can simply remove like a jumpsuit. Lucy still speaks like a Vault dweller. She still thinks with Vault habits. She still wants people to be better than they are. The difference is that now she understands wanting it is not enough. If she is going to keep believing in goodness, she has to fight for a version of goodness that can survive truth. Maximus is facing a similar challenge, but from the other direction. He was not raised inside comfort. He was raised inside aftermath. The Brotherhood gave him language for his pain. It told him there was honor in service, meaning in hierarchy, and salvation in becoming part of something larger. But the more Maximus sees, the more he has to ask whether the Brotherhood is helping him become noble or simply teaching him to worship strength. The armor becomes the perfect symbol of that conflict. When Maximus first wants it, the desire is almost childlike in its clarity. Armor means nobody can push him around. Armor means he can command respect. Armor means he can become the kind of person who arrives in someone else's worst moment and changes the outcome. But once he gets inside it, the fantasy changes. The armor protects him, but it also tempts him. It lets him hide. It gives him authority he has not fully earned. It allows him to confuse appearance with transformation. And the show keeps asking whether Maximus wants to be good or whether he wants to be seen as good. That distinction is everything. Many stories would make his arc a simple rise. Weak outsider becomes brave knight. Fallout makes it messier. Maximus may become a hero one day, but first he has to face the ways he has used heroism as costume. His lies to Lucy matter because they show how desperate he is to preserve the image. Yet his genuine care for her also matters because it shows that the image is not all he has. Like Lucy, Maximus is not finished. He is unfinished in a world that punishes unfinished people. His season-end position, drawn deeper into the Brotherhood's world while emotionally tied to Lucy's truth, sets up one of the show's strongest future tensions. If the Brotherhood becomes more aggressive in its pursuit of technology, and Lucy continues chasing Hank and Vault-Tec's secrets, Maximus may have to choose between the institution that gave him identity and the person who made him question it. That choice will not be clean. The Brotherhood is not purely evil. That is what makes the tension work. It can save people, it can organize resources, it can fight threats others cannot, but it also carries the old poison of Fallout's world. The belief that power should be concentrated in the hands of those who claim they are responsible enough to control it. That is the same logic wearing different armor. Vault-Tec says, "Trust us with the future." The Brotherhood says, "Trust us with the technology." The wasteland has learned, again and again, that the people saying, "Trust us," usually mean, "Obey us." The Ghoul understands this better than anyone, because he remembers the original sales pitch. His present-day body is like living evidence against the old world's promises. Everything that was supposed to protect civilization failed. Everything that was supposed to make America permanent became debris. The bright culture he once belonged to is now a graveyard of jingles, ruins, and weapons that still work better than most communities do. But Cooper's memories also complicate him. He was not always outside the lie. At one point, he benefited from it. He was part of the entertainment machine. He performed the cowboy ideal. He sold trust. He lent his face to a culture that was collapsing under the weight of its own paranoia and greed. That does not make him responsible for the apocalypse in the way Vault-Tec's leaders were responsible, but it does make him part of the old world's surface layer. He was the smile on the poster. That is why becoming the Ghoul is such a cruel reversal. The man who once represented a clean, heroic fantasy becomes a scarred survivor in a world where heroism is almost impossible to perform without irony. He has no clean face left, no marketable image, no family audience, no studio lighting, just memory, violence, and a body that refuses to let him die. And yet, the series keeps suggesting that Cooper Howard is still inside him. Not the innocent version, not the public version, but the man who loved his daughter, the man who suspected his wife was involved in something terrible, the man who wanted to know the truth before the bombs ended the argument. The Ghoul's cruelty is real, but so is the grief underneath it. His search for Hank is not only revenge, it is the continuation of a question that began before the war. What did Barb know? What did Vault-Tec do? And where is his family in the ruins of that decision? These questions push the series beyond Season 1's immediate conflict and into its larger mythology. Hank's escape toward New Vegas is not just a cliffhanger for fans of the game world. In story terms, it signals that the truth is moving toward another major center of power, another place where old-world ambition and wasteland survival have mixed into something dangerous. New Vegas matters because Fallout is not a universe where cities are only locations. Cities are arguments too. They are visions of what civilization can become after the bomb. Some are democratic, some are corporate, some are militarized, some are lawless, some are theatrical, and some are all of those at once. By pointing the story toward New Vegas, the show suggests that the next chapter will not simply answer old questions. It will introduce a new stage for power, and Hank's presence there raises the stakes. He is not a wandering fugitive with nowhere to go. He appears to be seeking something or someone tied to the deeper Vault-Tec network and the surviving ambitions of the pre-war world. That means Lucy and the Ghoul are not only chasing a man. They are chasing a system that may still have active pieces on the board. This is the moment where Fallout's first season reveals itself as a beginning, not a closed loop. The season answers enough to satisfy. It explains the Vault deception, Hank's betrayal, Shady Sands, Moldaver's motive, the cold fusion conflict, and the emotional break that sends Lucy into a new phase. But it leaves the largest doors open. The fate of Cooper's family, the full extent of Vault-Tec's surviving leadership, the future of cold fusion under Brotherhood attention, the truth about New Vegas, and whether Lucy can expose the system without becoming consumed by the same violence that defines the wasteland. That open structure is important because Fallout as a franchise is built on aftermath. There is never just one secret, one villain, or one ending that fixes the world. Every solution creates another factional struggle. Every technology becomes contested. Every truth threatens someone's power. The show honors that by refusing to pretend that one finale can clean the map. Instead, it gives us a sharper question. Now that Lucy knows the truth, what will she do with it? Because knowledge is not automatically freedom. Plenty of people in Fallout know the truth and still become cruel, bitter, fanatical, or numb. Moldaver knows the truth and uses violence. The Ghoul knows the truth and has become almost merciless. Hank knows the truth and uses it to justify atrocity. Norm begins to know the truth and finds himself trapped inside the machine. Lucy's challenge is to become something different. Not innocent, not cynical, not obedient, not monstrous. Something else. That is why her walk with the Ghoul at the end feels so charged. They represent two possible outcomes of exposure to reality. Lucy is at the beginning of disillusionment. The Ghoul is what disillusionment can become after 2 centuries of pain. If she learns from him without becoming him, she may become the kind of person Fallout rarely allows, someone who can see the world clearly and still choose mercy with open eyes. But the show is honest enough to suggest that this will cost her, because the wasteland does not reward moral clarity. It tests it again and again, through hunger, fear, betrayal, loneliness, and the pressure to become practical in ways that slowly erase the soul. Lucy's next journey, then, is not only about finding Hank. It is about finding out whether goodness can grow teeth without turning into cruelty. One of the smartest things Fallout does is make the ending feel like a door opening instead of a door closing. A weaker version of the story would have treated Hank's reveal as the final answer. The father was not who Lucy thought he was. Vault-Tec was more corrupt than she knew. Shady Sands was destroyed. Cold fusion was activated. The Brotherhood arrived. The end. But Fallout understands that a real conspiracy story does not end when the main character learns the first truth. It changes the kind of danger she is in. Before the reveal, Lucy is endangered by ignorance. She does not know the wasteland. She does not know the history. She does not know the scale of the lie. After the reveal, she is endangered by knowledge. She now knows enough to become a threat to the people and systems that survive by keeping history controlled. That shift is huge. Lucy is no longer just a vault dweller trying to rescue her father. She is a witness. And in Fallout, witnesses are dangerous because the old world's greatest weapon was never only nuclear power. It was narrative control. It was the ability to decide what people believed before they even knew there was another version of the story. Vault-Tec did not just build shelters. It built explanations. It told people the vaults were necessary. It told survivors they were chosen. It told future generations that obedience was preservation. It turned catastrophe into a managed brand identity. And inside Vault 33, that brand became daily life. Lucy's politeness, optimism, and sense of duty are not fake, but they were cultivated inside a system that needed people like her to trust it without seeing the machinery underneath. That is what makes her dangerous now. She still has the moral language Vault-Tec taught her, but she no longer belongs fully to Vault-Tec's story. She can take the best parts of that upbringing and turn them against the system that shaped her. That is also why Norm's situation inside the vault becomes so suspenseful. Norm is not a warrior. He is not charging through the wasteland. He is not chasing a bounty or wearing power armor. But his investigation may be one of the most threatening actions in the entire season because it attacks the system from within. He questions the official story. He notices the gaps. He follows the strange connection between the vaults. And when he reaches Vault 31, he finds the hidden heart of the experiment. That is a different kind of horror from the surface. The surface horror is immediate. Creatures attack, people shoot, bodies decay, deals turn deadly. Vault horror is procedural. Doors open with authorization. Records are hidden behind cheerful systems. People smile while repeating lines they do not fully understand. A community can keep functioning even while its foundation is monstrous because the routines are designed to prevent people from asking the wrong questions. Norm is the wrong question made human, and his discovery makes one thing clear. The vault system does not only preserve life, it preserves control across generations. The people in Vault 31 are not just survivors waiting in the same way ordinary vault dwellers are waiting. They are part of a management class extended through time. They are old-world thinking kept alive in human storage. That idea is one of Fallout's nastiest jokes. The end of the world happens, and somehow middle management survives. But the joke works because the threat is real. These are not just funny corporate ghosts. They are the living continuation of the worldview that helped destroy everything. They believe people should be guided from above. They believe experiments are acceptable if the goal is big enough. They believe the future can be engineered by people who never have to suffer the full cost of their designs. The vaults become the perfect expression of that belief. Each one can look like a community, but the larger network is more like a laboratory. The individual people inside may be kind, loyal, confused, frightened, or innocent, but the structure around them has never been innocent. That distinction matters for the whole series. Fallout is not saying every vault dweller is guilty. It is saying systems can make good people live inside lies and call those lies culture. Lucy and Norm are not guilty of building Vault-Tec's machine. They were born into it. But once they begin to see it, the question changes. What responsibility does someone have after they learn the truth? Lucy answers by moving forward. Norm answers by digging deeper. Maximus has not fully answered yet. That is part of what makes him so compelling moving into the next chapter. He is still at the point where identity and institution are tangled together. The Brotherhood gives him structure, but it also rewards the exact confusion he needs to outgrow. It tells him he can become worthy through rank, obedience, and access to power. But his experiences with Lucy suggest another path, worth built through honesty, vulnerability, and choice. The problem is that honesty is dangerous for Maximus. His whole rise has been built on a lie, and institutions like the Brotherhood are rarely kind to people who expose weakness. If he confesses too much, he risks losing the armor, the status, and the only family structure he has known. If he hides too much, he risks becoming exactly what he feared, someone who uses power to cover emptiness. That makes his future conflict almost inevitable. The Brotherhood's capture or control of cold fusion technology creates a major imbalance. A group already obsessed with preserving and monopolizing advanced technology now has access to something that could reshape the wasteland. In theory, they could use it to help rebuild. In practice, Fallout has taught us to be suspicious of anyone who claims they need control for everyone else's good. Maximus may believe the Brotherhood can be better. He may even want to make it better. But the question is whether a person still finding his own moral center can resist an institution that has spent generations turning power into religion. The armor will keep testing him, because power armor in Fallout is never just equipment. It is a fantasy of invulnerability. It lets a fragile person become huge. It lets someone frightened look unstoppable. For Maximus, that fantasy is intoxicating because his deepest wound is helplessness. He wants the armor to mean he has overcome that wound. But real courage would mean admitting the wound is still there, even when the armor closes around him. That is why Lucy matters to him. She sees the frightened person and the hopeful person, not just the soldier. But Lucy also has every reason to distrust him after his lies. Their connection is tender because it is damaged. And if the series continues to push them from opposite sides of a factional conflict, that damage could become either the thing that breaks them or the thing that forces both to mature. For Lucy, trusting Maximus again would require more than affection. It would require evidence that he can choose truth over image. For Maximus, loving Lucy honestly would require choosing the person he wants to become over the role he wants others to admire. That is the emotional pressure Fallout has built so well. Its relationships are not separate from the world building. Every bond is shaped by institutions: Vault, Brotherhood, Corporation, Faction, Family, Army, Experiment. People are trying to love, trust, and protect each other while standing inside systems designed to make those things conditional. Even Cooper and Barb's marriage fits that pattern. In the flashbacks, Cooper begins as someone who wants to believe his family life is separate from the ugliness of the corporate and political world. He may disagree with things. He may become suspicious. But there is still a part of him that wants home to be home. Barb's connection to Vault-Tec destroys that boundary. The conspiracy is not just out there in government rooms or corporate offices. It is at the dinner table. It is in the marriage. It is in the decisions being made about their daughter's future. That is why Cooper's search for Barb is so emotionally complicated. He wants answers, but answers may not restore the woman he loved. They may confirm that she chose the plan, or that she was trapped by it, or that she believed, like so many Fallout characters, that a terrible choice was justified because the alternative was worse. The show leaves that question alive because it is one of the deepest emotional mysteries still unresolved. Where is Barb? Where is their daughter? Did Cooper lose them to death, to Vault-Tec, to time, or to choices he still does not understand? The Ghoul's entire present-day persona can be read as a defense against those questions. If he acts like nothing matters, then the loss cannot keep happening. If he becomes cruel before others can be cruel to him, then he controls the exchange. If he treats people as assets, then he does not have to remember what it felt like to treat people as family. But Lucy threatens that defense, not because she softens him instantly, but because she reminds him of a kind of moral clarity he has spent centuries mocking. At first, he sees that clarity as ignorance, and often he is right. But after Lucy learns the truth and keeps moving, her decency starts to look less like ignorance and more like resistance. That may be the most important shift in their dynamic. Early Lucy believes in goodness because she has been sheltered from the worst. Future Lucy has the chance to believe in goodness after seeing the worst. The Ghoul has not believed that was possible for a very long time. Their journey toward Hank in New Vegas therefore has two layers. On the outside, it is a pursuit. They need to find Hank, because Hank is connected to Vault-Tec's surviving secrets and Cooper's unanswered past. But on the inside, it is a collision between two philosophies. The Ghoul's philosophy says the world reveals itself through violence, leverage, and survival. Lucy's emerging philosophy says the world may reveal its horror, but horror does not get the final word unless people surrender to it. That does not mean Lucy can stay soft in the old way. She cannot. The wasteland will force hard choices, but there is a difference between becoming harder and becoming hollow. Fallout's future depends heavily on whether Lucy can learn that difference before the wasteland teaches her too much. The move toward New Vegas sharpens this because New Vegas is not just another ruin. It represents the possibility of spectacle surviving the apocalypse. A place like that can turn civilization into a performance, power into entertainment, and survival into a casino floor where everyone is gambling with history. That makes it a perfect destination for a show obsessed with masks, brands, and systems that sell control as freedom. If Vault-Tec sold safety, New Vegas may sell choice. And in Fallout, choice is always complicated by who owns the table. That is why Hank's arrival there feels ominous. He is a man from a controlled underground future moving toward a city famous for its own kind of control. He carries knowledge, guilt, and access. He is not running randomly. He is moving like someone who still believes there is a plan to reach. For Lucy, catching him will mean facing the father wound again. For the Ghoul, catching him may mean getting closer to Barb. For the Brotherhood, following the energy trail may mean expanding its power. For the wider wasteland, cold fusion may become either a miracle or the next excuse for war. And for the audience, the final question becomes bigger than any one character. Did the bombs end the old world, or did they simply give its worst people enough cover to build the next one? Season 2 takes the promise of the first season and makes it wider, stranger, and more dangerous. Season 1 ended by pointing toward New Vegas. Season 2 has to prove that New Vegas is not just fan service, not just a famous location pulled from the games to make the audience cheer. It has to matter to the story the show is already telling. And the reason it works is that New Vegas represents the next evolution of Fallout's central obsession, power wrapped in performance. Vault-Tec sells safety. The Brotherhood sells order. New Vegas sells possibility. But underneath all three, the same question remains. Who owns the future? For Lucy and the Ghoul, the road into New Vegas is not a vacation into nostalgia. It is a continuation of the hunt for Hank Vault-Tec's surviving secrets and the truth about Cooper's family. The first season ended with Lucy realizing her father was not just a victim of the wasteland. Season 2 forces her to live with that knowledge. That is harder than discovering it, because a twist is a moment. Disillusionment is a condition. Lucy now has to move through the world knowing that the person she loved most helped destroy another society. She has to chase him, confront him, and still decide what kind of person she wants to become afterward. Fallout does not let her simply become cold. It keeps testing whether her decency is a leftover vault habit or a real moral choice. That difference becomes even clearer in New Vegas because the city is built on choices that may not be as free as they appear. Neon, gambling, performance, politics, and technology all blur together. Everyone is playing a game, but not everyone knows the rules. That is perfect for Lucy because she has spent her whole life inside someone else's rulebook. Now she is in a place where the rules are openly transactional, and the danger is not hidden behind a friendly vault smile. It is lit up and advertised. The Ghoul understands this world more quickly because he understands performance. New Vegas may be different from Hollywood, but the machinery is familiar. Make people look at the lights. Make them believe they are choosing. Make them forget who built the stage. Cooper Howard spent his old life inside a culture of image, and New Vegas is what happens when image survives the end of the world. That is why Robert House becomes such an important figure in the second season's world. House is not simply another powerful man. He represents a different version of old-world survival. Vault-Tec hides in controlled communities. The Brotherhood hides behind sacred military language. House survives through technology, calculation, and an almost mythic belief in his own vision. He is the kind of person Fallout is always suspicious of. Brilliant enough to understand catastrophe, arrogant enough to think the answer should belong to him. And that is the show's larger warning again. The wasteland is not short on people with plans. It is short on people who can make plans without turning other human beings into tools. Season 2 deepens that theme by pushing Hank beyond the role of exposed father and into the machinery of the Enclave, Vault-Tec's lingering legacy, and the next stage of human control. Hank's danger is not only what he did in the past, it is what he still believes can be justified. A man like Hank can lose his daughter's trust, lose the clean image of himself, and still cling to the idea that the plan matters more than individual pain. That makes Lucy's refusal of him even more important. She is not only rejecting a father, she is rejecting inherited obedience. Hank wants her to accept the logic of necessity, the same old argument used by every powerful institution in Fallout. The world is dangerous, so we must control it. People are weak, so we must guide them. The future is too important, so the few must decide for the many. Lucy's entire journey is a slow awakening against that sentence. But the show does not make the answer easy. Season 2 keeps asking whether people can resist control without creating a different control system in response. The NCR, Caesar's Legion, the Brotherhood, House, Vault-Tec, and the Enclave all represent competing answers to the same wasteland problem. Each one claims it can organize chaos. Each one claims the others are too dangerous to lead. And each one reveals how quickly rebuilding civilization can become another excuse for domination. Maximus is caught in the middle of that exact problem. By this point, he has moved far beyond the nervous squire we first met. He has gained status, survived impossible situations, and become more significant inside Brotherhood politics. But that rise does not solve him. If anything, it puts more pressure on the wound that defined him from the start. He wanted power because power looked like safety. Now he has to decide what safety is worth if it costs him his conscience. His disillusionment with the Brotherhood is one of the most important long-term arcs in the series. Maximus has seen enough to know that rank and righteousness are not the same thing. He has also seen enough to know that leaving a powerful system is not as simple as realizing it is flawed. The Brotherhood is part of him. It gave him language, purpose, and identity. To question it is to question the story that helped him survive. That is why his relationship with Lucy remains so emotionally useful. She is not only a romantic connection, she is a test of whether Maximus can choose truth over belonging, and he is a test of whether Lucy can trust someone who is still becoming honest. Their bond works because neither of them is morally finished. Lucy is learning how to be good without being sheltered. Maximus is learning how to be strong without being false. The Ghoul is learning whether a person can be ruined and still have unfinished love inside him. And Season 2's strongest emotional material keeps returning to Cooper's family. The mystery of Barb and Janey is not just another plot thread. It is the last human piece of Cooper Howard's old self. The Ghoul can act like the past is only fuel for vengeance, but his search proves otherwise. He still wants to know. He still wants to find what remains. He still wants to believe that 200 years of rot did not erase the people he loved completely. That is what gives his arc its pain. For Lucy, the truth destroys the father she believed in. For Cooper, the truth may destroy the memory of the wife he loved. Both of them are chasing family, but every answer makes family more complicated. That is Fallout's emotional genius. It does not separate the big mythology from personal heartbreak. The Vault experiments matter because they shaped Lucy's childhood. The Enclave matters because it reaches into Hank's choices. New Vegas matters because it contains answers about who controlled the old world and who wants to control the new one. Cooper's missing family matters because the apocalypse is not just a historical event to him. It is the day his private life was swallowed by a corporate plan. By the current ending state, the series has expanded into a much larger war of futures. Caesar's Legion, the NCR, House's lingering influence, the Brotherhood, the Enclave, Vault-Tec's remaining design, and the unresolved mystery around Cooper's family all point toward a third season where the wasteland is not merely a setting. It is a battlefield of ideologies, and that is exactly what Fallout should be. Not just monsters, not just jokes, not just retro music and ruined diners. Fallout is about the terrifying comedy of human systems surviving longer than human wisdom. It is about companies that outlive countries, armies that outlive their morals, leaders who outlive their accountability, and ordinary people trying to build something decent in the wreckage. Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul work because each one represents a different response to that wreckage. Lucy is the hope that survives after innocence dies. Maximus is the hunger for dignity, trying not to become worship of power. The Ghoul is the memory of the old world, rotted but still walking, still angry, still searching. Together, they make the series feel like more than an adaptation. They make it feel like a complete Fallout story. Funny, violent, tragic, political, personal, and deeply suspicious of anyone who says they know what is best for everyone else. The hidden detail holding the whole show together is that the apocalypse is not treated as the end of the story. It is treated as the proof. The bombs reveal what was already there. The greed, the hierarchy, the branding, the paranoia, the fantasy that the right people could destroy the world and still deserve to inherit it afterward. That is why Fallout's ending and current state hit so hard. The world did not end because humanity lacked technology. It ended because technology was placed in the hands of people who confused control with salvation. And the new world may repeat that mistake unless someone breaks the pattern. Lucy may be that someone, but only if she refuses both lies offered to her. The Vault's lie says goodness means obedience. The Wasteland's lie says survival means cruelty. Her real path has to be somewhere between them. Maximus may become heroic, but only if he stops treating armor as identity and starts treating truth as responsibility. The Ghoul may find his family, but only if he admits that answers are not the same as healing. And the wasteland itself may never become clean, safe, or fair. Fallout is too honest for that, but the series keeps suggesting that even in a world built from corporate crimes, military fanatics, broken families, and glowing ruins, people still have choices. Not easy choices, not pure choices, but choices that reveal what kind of future they are willing to fight for. That is why the show works. It understands that Fallout was never just about surviving the end of the world. It was always about asking who keeps trying to own the world after they already helped destroy it. And, as the series moves forward, that question becomes more dangerous than any deathclaw, any vault door, or any loaded gun. Because the real monster in Fallout is not radiation. It is power that still believes it deserves another chance.